Podcast. If you're ready to grow, then let's go. This is the Lincoln County Podcast. Hey, yo, Matt, let's start the show.
Thank you to our sponsors, K. Flynn Insurance, elect Bruce Becker for the Lincoln County Fire Board, and the Crafty Midwestern Mommy for their continued support of the Lincoln County Podcast. Hey guys, another great episode today. I am just beyond excited to be blessed to have this platform to bring people like this on to share their message, share their goals and everything with Lincoln County. So as usual, like, subscribe, and share the podcast. This is how people see how great Lincoln County is. If we're not sharing it out there, nobody's seeing it. And support our sponsors. These sponsors are what make this possible. I am not a billionaire. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not paying for all this out of pocket. It is our sponsors. So turn it over. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Matt?
Good. I'm good. It's been a good day. I love doing this.
Oh, no.
I love having these
awesome.
conversations.
Yeah,
so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Tyler Zarnowski. So I am the vice president of the Guild. I've been with the Guild now for about 2 years now. I went through the program back in 22, if my math's right. And I'm also a law enforcement officer, and then I work for the National Organization of Victim Advocacy. So I'm a international trainer for them, and really just blending all of that stuff together. Been in law enforcement for right around 9 years now, and then was in the military prior to that. And the Guild has just been something that's changed my life, and, you know, we can get into that more.
Yeah, no, like what would you say the Guild does to change people's lives? Because I mean, let's take the assumption like that people haven't heard mine and Justin's 2 hours of just craziness. 5 hours if you count the Guild's
Both
podcast I went on. Whew, we were getting loopy at the end of that one.
It was a good podcast, though. So, yeah, the Guild, we're a 501c3 that supports veterans, first responders, and individuals of service. And for people who have heard Justin talk before, the verbiage is a little bit different now. Previously, we were saying men of service, right? And now it's individuals, people of service. So we are starting in November, our first female cohort, which we're really, really excited about. So we'll be doing a female stations in November. So what the Guild is, like I said, we're a 501c3. We provide critical incident stress debriefing. So myself and Justin are both trained in critical incident stress debriefing. And then with NOVA, which is the acronym for that, I go around and I teach people how to conduct critical incident stress debriefings all across the country. So that's the model we use for that. We do peer support. So one-on-one peer support or group peer support. We do both in-person and virtual. We have stations, which is what Justin has talked about before, and then we do one-on-one coaching for individuals. And the thing that we're most proud of is it's completely free for the individuals that come through, because we found that if finances aren't a concern, a lot more people are willing to do it, right?
For sure.
The people that we're looking to get, right, we're not fixing people, we're collecting assets, which I know Justin had said on both 5-hour podcasts, right? What we mean by that is people's experiences, people's ability to talk to other people, share their experiences, completely changes the way that we see that perspective. And that perspective change for individuals is really, really important when it comes to moving through the trauma or the experiences that we've had in our lives.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's I've watched you guys for a while now. I've known Justin for a long time, and watching everything that you guys have done and the passion which you followed is amazing, and what it's done. And I'm excited that, you know, it was the Guild, you know, it was about men, and now we're going the other way, you know, going both ways, which is great because yes, men need this. And yes, we've talked about this to length about the men's health crisis in this country and so much, but like, what is it like getting this other side set up now and bringing on that other aspect? Because it's just helping more people.
Yeah, so we're really, really excited about it. This was something that we kind of went back and forth with, right? Is this idea of, and this was just, you know, what we saw in the beginning, and Stu might yell at me for saying this, but should two men be telling women how to live their lives, right? And that was something that we really struggled with. And by being able to bring in female facilitators and females to be able to run that program, we feel like it opens up a wide range of these services to people that need it, because trauma and adverse life experiences don't just impact men and women, it's both that it impacts. So being able to open up those services has been and will be a huge benefit for us across the board.
That's awesome.
To be able to continue to help people and help anybody that needs it, right?
Where do you guys find like the most need is as far as with the trauma? Like, I think when sometimes people hear this stuff, when I originally saw the stuff associated with, well, it's military law enforcement.
Yeah.
You guys are all law enforcement. You know, it's easy to think it's just military and law enforcement. And it's something that, you know, Justin and I did talk about on his episode about, you know, the different PTSDs. It doesn't have to be the person next to you was shot and killed. Where are you guys seeing the most need?
Yeah, so what we've previously found is the first responder and veteran community has been really our core base, right? Just by the nature of who we're around, the jobs that we have, there's different things, that's been the core base. But what we found is that by bringing in other individuals that don't have that service experience, is we're all experiencing the same things just in different ways, right? So by being able to get individuals in a room that have different perspectives to be able to share and say, hey, yeah, the screaming that you hear in the fan isn't normal. Or sitting with the back to your door, you know, isn't normal, right? That's not what normal people do, but the experiences that we've had in the job change how we've then interacted with the world around us and our families and those different things. So we see that most of the people that are coming in, it's not significant trauma. It's not, you know, anything like that. It's the guys and now gals that are just experiencing different life events and not really sure how to work through that, or not feeling purposeful in their lives, and then being able to work through that and design a set of mission statements and things like that to be able to help them through that.
Well, in school they taught us how to, you know, stitch a pillow, how to do advanced mathematics, but nobody taught you how to deal through trauma or loss in your life. I find a lot of people struggle with loss of loved ones. If someone passes away, I've watched people completely change them, and it was something I was very adamant at with my kids. I had this conversation with a friend of mine the other day that people die. Yeah. It's part of our lives. Like, it doesn't have to ruin the rest of yours. You know, I was very lucky. Like, one of my instructors that was much older when I was a kid, Vern and I used to talk about his funeral. Yeah. He goes, I want everybody to have fun. People die. You know, and Vern really taught me a really good lesson. My parents were good about it too. Like, we didn't just like, oh my gosh, we can't do anything because the dog passed or Uncle Bill's not around anymore. But Vern had kind of broken it down. He's like, you know, I want my celebration of life to be a celebration. I want all this stuff. And when I got up to speak at his funeral, and he always told me, you got to have a blue suit, son, because if you go to a funeral, you got a blue suit.
Got to have one.
And I realized I bought a blue suit because of that, and the first funeral I wore it to was his. But I got up and spoke, and I'm like, you guys need to knock off this crying crap. Like, this is what Vern wanted. And it gave me a very healthy understanding, but I have watched so many people, it just ruined them.
Yeah, and one of the things that's really interesting, and we teach this from the Nova side, is there's really 3 types of death, right? So you have your natural death, which is old age, right? Then you have your unnatural, which is kind of any diseases, anything that's diagnosable. And then you have that traumatic death. And a lot of times the death that individuals are experiencing is that traumatic death. And when you go through that traumatic death, you first have to grieve the traumatic death before you can even grieve the individual. So you actually go through 2 completely different grieving cycles, and we don't really talk about that, right? We go, oh, well, this person died from this, and I shouldn't feel bad anymore, all of these different things, right? And that individual may be going through a completely separate grief cycle than what we have, right?
Makes
so being
sense.
able to focus on those different things and see where people are at for that. And I think the death is a good point, right? Because it doesn't just have to be a physical death either. It can be loss of a loved one. It can be, especially like I know you're working a lot with kids, it can be moving schools, right?
Yes.
That death of an identity, that death of all of these different things that individuals still go through that grieving process. And that's something that we hit on a lot with the Guild, is recognizing like, hey, you have to be able to grieve those different things in your life and then work through them and change that perspective for them.
Yeah, it makes sense, because I've noticed for a while, like, I'll watch people come into school and be there for a while, and then something will happen, and you can watch everybody change, and you can see it affect the children.
Yeah.
And I question it sometimes, because being a parent, I'm very analytical of what I'm doing. Am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? I think we all are.
Yeah.
But you watch people and you're like, wow, that's one that I've always had such a healthy understanding of it that it didn't affect me like that, but I've watched it just crush people. And where do you get resources for that? So that's what's so amazing, is that type of stuff can really cause that PTSD for people. That can really throw them off forever, especially if it's used as a crutch. not saying they're manipulating it, but just saying if it becomes that big of an issue for them, it can really affect everything in their lives. And it's, where do you get the trauma help for that? How do you, that's where you guys come in, and helping people identify that and doing the things that you do, giving them that resource is amazing. Yeah.
And people, a lot of times they get stuck in, so our brain wants to answer a whole bunch of questions. And the one that generally people get stuck in is the why, right? If we don't have the ability to identify that why, right, we can't then move into the next stage of that process. So being able to try to identify that why. And one of the things that I love about Missouri is we're really at the cutting edge of mental health. It may not seem like it, but Missouri, especially for first responders and veterans, is far and above many other states.
Wow, that's
like
good.
Years ahead. So here in Missouri, just because you talked about resources, here in Missouri, we have a network. It's called the First Responder Provider Network, that provides services for vets, first responders, and their families. And every single one of those therapists is either former law enforcement, former first responder, veteran, or have some family connection to it. So they have that cultural piece, because no cop or really first responder in general wants to go into a therapist and start talking about something they experienced, and then the therapist start crying, right? That's just not effective for that, because most of the people are helping people, and they want to ensure that other people are okay before we actually take the time to focus on ourselves. And we see that a lot as well within the Guild, is people being, I don't want to say afraid, but being afraid to come in, or being like, hey, I'm not that bad, there's other people that need that spot, and really helping people recognize that the spot's there for you, right? And you are important just as much as the next person. So really trying to get that ingrained in.
But you can't pour from an empty cup. No. You've got to heal yourself first. Yep. When I did a speaking competition, that was something they discussed, that you can't, because I didn't realize, I went to speak competition thinking people doing business stuff. I was like, I'm going to throw on a suit. Everybody's going to have suits. We're all going to be doing speaking. No, the trauma that people spoke on blew me away. It was like one of those things I tried to explain to people. I'm like, they're like, oh, you won? It must feel so good. I'm like, not really. Not really. There was some major stuff people went over. Yes, I executed the speech to the rules of the competition. Yeah. But I don't feel like I should be like, haha, I won. Like, because of what people talk. But one of the things they discuss is you can't speak from a place of hurt. You can't try to help people unless you're healed, because you're not going to be able to do it. Yeah. And there was people getting up to speak that had not healed yet, or hadn't been through that process, and you can't speak from that point because you're not able to help them. And again, you can't pour from an empty cup. Like you have to take care of that. So you guys seeing that and being able to point that out, and a lot of your first responders, a lot of your military, a lot of those they're going into that to help people. So they're gonna want to help someone and be like, no, I'm good. Just shove it down. I'm good. Yeah. And you can't do that.
I am Julie Forster with Crafty Midwestern Mommy, your local boutique embroidery and fabric store. I sell fabric as well as sewing notions, and also teach classes. And then we also, on the other side of our business, do machine embroidery, custom apparel for local businesses, and just personalized gifts. Again, the store's name is Crafty Midwestern Mommy, and that's how you can find us on all social media platforms as well as our website.
That's what I experienced, and my journey into the Guild is one that I think is not unique for a lot of the people that have come through, where I was struggling pretty bad with mental health. I had some pretty significant critical incidents that I went through, and did that whole, I'm going to be a tough dude and just not talk about it. And I finally had the opportunity. I met Stu. They called it a pig jig, and it was a law enforcement get together over the summer, and
my brain was wrapping around that. I was trying to keep a straight face.
Nope, that
was good. Yeah.
The impression. So they called it
a
pig jig, and I actually think this was pig jig number 2. So it wasn't the first time. But Stu was in, I guess he called them silkies. Right, he was wearing silkies, little short shorts.
Oh, yeah.
And my girlfriend at the time, now fiance Liz, was like, "Hey, I've heard about that program, and you should really go talk to this dude." Because she was and she told me later on, actually a couple days ago, we were talking to some people, and she said, before you went to stations, there was like this dark cloud over your head. Yeah. And as soon as you went to stations, it was gone. Now, what I'm not saying is that we're, erasing all the darkness in people's lives, but just for her to even say that was big. And when I went into the Guild, I don't actually remember even signing up. I got a text a couple weeks later that was like, hey, thanks for signing up for stations. Here's the day.
He got you some clickbait on
He got me
Facebook,
some
didn't
clickbait
you?
or something, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I think it's important for people to recognize that it's the same for everybody, right? We see something, we go, I don't know if that's for me, or we have that resistance to it, and you immediately try to discredit, right? The first thing that I said to Stu when I talked to him was, hey, dude, I'm in mental health. This is what I do for a living. I help kids that are, going through suicidal episodes and experiences that they're having. And I'm like, I'll come to this thing because I said that I would, but as soon as you screw up on some mental health thing, I'm going to call you on it, and I'm done. And he goes, cool.
Yeah.
Show up. And, it's been 2.5 years and I haven't called him yet. So,
yeah.
And it's really changed my life, and to see the change in the guys' lives that have come through has just been one of the most rewarding things that I've ever experienced, and being able to experience that as well, because that's one of the things that I know Stu had talked about is anybody who comes to the program as cadre or as staff, if people aren't familiar with cadre, every single one of them has come through the program. So they have that experience. They've gone through very similar experiences within the guild so that they can then teach those lessons and assist those men as they go through that process.
Makes sense.
To have that camaraderie and be able to say, hey, I know what you've been through. I've experienced that as well. So it's interesting to see how people get connected. And a lot of times we find that it's spouses. They're like, hey, you should probably go do that. And we've even seen that now introducing the female program is we've got quite a number of females that are like, hey, yeah, I want to do this. And men, we've always struggled in some aspects to get the guys there, right? For a whole number of reasons, right? I don't need it. I don't have time. I don't know if this is the right fit. And what we've done is, one, by eliminating that cost, right? Because stations wasn't always free. There was some donation pieces. By eliminating that and saying, hey, look, if you're not, and you may have seen the post the other day that we made, if you're not the father, the husband, the employee that you want to be, then utilize this to become that, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not, if you feel like you're doing great, awesome, come and share those lessons with the guys that are going through that aren't doing great. And if you're not doing great, awesome, come and learn from the people that have been there or have that experience. And if you're in the middle, awesome, you can take from both sides. And that's the thing. Like we learn so much every stations about ourselves, right? And we've changed the program a little bit based on feedback, based on different things that we received, to ensure that we're putting the best program forward for everybody that comes through, and also recognizing that we may not be the right fit for everyone.
Oh, that's
right.
Huge.
And that really recognizing that we're not the right fit for everybody. And yet when somebody reaches out, what we do is we'll do an initial intake with them. We'll sit on a Zoom call with them, talk about, hey, what are you looking for? What are your expectations? What are the things that you're looking to get from this? And then we explain what the guild is, kind of what we're doing, why we're doing it. And if they decide, hey, this isn't the right fit, or we say, hey, maybe you're not at a spot that stations is the right fit, we can then connect them to one of the other programs that we have, or we have a network of other agencies that we've either attended or we've worked with that we can then say, hey, if you have significant substance use, stations probably isn't going to be the best fit for you, right? Let's get you connected to this therapist or this inpatient program. First. And what we do is we then continue that process and follow up to provide that peer support so guys don't feel alone when they're going through that process. So, yeah.
Well, and I think that's something that the world has gotten away from. And there's a lot of people that are preaching on this these days. I was just on a podcast, talked with a guy about it the other day. Men need to support other men. You need that good group of people around you to help you with those decisions and to be able to talk about that stuff, because it's not just you feeling it. So many people are struggling with it. I find this with teens. The other day, I think Justin and I both spoke at Troy, the sheriff leadership camp. I was talking to the kids and I went over everything with them, and it was great because I listened to a podcast earlier that week, and something I wanted to speak on, I had heard it on a comedy special. The way the guy phrased it, but the way he phrased it was extremely inappropriate. And I never could wrap my head around another way to phrase it. Yeah. That week, this podcast, the guy's like, oh, it's your winner voice and your whiner voice. And I'm like, oh, that would totally work with kids. Because it worked with adults. It was better than Christopher Titus was calling it your inner retard. I'm like, well, that's not going to fly,
that's probably
bud.
Not gonna fly.
That's not going to work. That's an older special of his. Now that he's woke, they should probably air that. That would be hilarious. But I loved the voice. I loved that phrasing. And so I spoke to kids out there, and they were tired. They were out in the sun. My own son was like, can I go home now? Like, he ended up wimping out and going home with me every night. Like, even Stu tried to get him to stay, and he was like, no.
It's too hot.
I'm not, he's like, no. No, kids kept him up the first night. He was exhausted, and he just wanted to come home to his bed, and he knows that we're 10 minutes away. Whatever. We'll see how it goes. 2 weeks, he goes to church camp for a week where it's 3 hours away. He ain't getting picked up.
Yeah, that's a little farther.
I think he'll be fine there, but I think he would have been fine too at camp, but I came out and spoke, and seeing me was like, okay, I'm tired, I'm emotionally drained, there's Dad, and I pushed a little, but I wasn't going to just leave him there and put that on everyone else.
Yeah.
But one of the kids came up to me that is autistic. He was one of my students. So we talked about winning and celebrating your little wins and how that winner voice can outrank the whiner voice. And so a kid comes up to me and he goes, so what you're saying, and I'm like, I just kind of stops. He always stops me. I see him everywhere. I go into all the schools, do kick punching stuff. And he's like, so you're saying that I don't have to like win a baseball game to be a winner. Like I can just do little things, and that does make that I'm a winner. And I was like, yeah. I'm thinking, okay, God, thank you, because I thought I just flopped because the kids were like, yeah, cool, ice cream. Like they were right. And they were just tired. But the fact that it resonated with him, who is probably one of the slowest ones there, except for some of the sheriffs I met. They were a hoot. Oh, my gosh. But, yeah, there's definitely a few of them are definitely way below that kid. But he, the fact that he grasped it so well showed me that it worked. Everybody, has something they can take away from this stuff, but you don't know where they're at. And they're going to learn. And what you guys are doing and being able to help these adults, they don't have that circle around. They don't always have that. I didn't realize that with people for a while because I read the self-help books. I talk about my emotions way more. My wife tells me, shut up. I don't care how you feel tonight. Go to bed. Not everybody does that.
Yeah, and it's wild too. And we talk about that intake, right? What are you intaking? And good example. So I went and I taught in Ohio last week, one of the Nova trainings, and got a bunch of, so they did reviews every single time, and I got all the reviews back, and there was one that gave me a 3 out of 5. And which one do you think I thought about the whole time?
Yeah.
It was that one, right? And even though there were 15 other, hey, this was awesome, right? It was that one that I focused on and being able to shift that perspective. And one of the things
instead of being like, oh, I got a 99%, 5 out of 5, you're like, I got that would be what I would do too. I'd be like, what could I have done to reach? And
recognizing that no matter what you do, there's always going to be people that are going to be like, no, I'm sure with the podcast,
you could save
right?
a kitten from a tree. Oh yeah, don't even get me started on this. I've had so many people. Well, I haven't been asked to be on. Bro, I put up like 10 videos saying if you want to come on, but there's people that are like, I don't know why dude will let me on his podcast.
Yeah.
I haven't told anyone no yet. I've avoided one topic, and that was with the elections. I've had a ton of people wanting to come on and talk about the elections. And I really, truthfully, we're just booked out too far for it. But there's always going to be somebody that's sour
and you
grapes.
have to recognize too that if we're not intaking positive, right? And Stu and you had talked about it as well. Like you jump on Instagram or you jump on TikTok, and you're inundated with stuff that is negative, right? That is not really what we should be looking at. And then we get focused on that. You might see one positive, spiritual TikTok, or you might see one self-help thing. But if your algorithm isn't designed for you to do that, it's just
I don't even think it inundated. Has to be the algorithm anymore. Like I played around with hacking my algorithm by only liking personal development content. But then you scroll past a fitness influencer and she's got the barbell between her butt cheeks. You pause for it, you're like, oh, and you go up, boom.
Yep.
It caught that you paused on it because they have that software now. And then that pops up. And it's like, no, I had it hacked. It was all personal development because I was trying to just force feed myself positivity 24/7 because so many people are negative. I go walk in and tell my guys, man, you got a 3,000 square foot house. The AC's on, the homeowner's a smoke show. It's all going beige. You've got stilts. You don't even have to climb a ladder. Like I can lay it all out and they'd be like, ugh, flat paint.
Yeah.
Okay, like I told one employee one time, I'm like, you know what? You guys are all off this week. I'll just mail you your checks. I get it's too hard coming to work. And she was like, really? I'm like, no, I'm not really. Like my brain almost broke because I was like, wow, you didn't catch all the sarcasm in that? But social media force feeds us that trash no matter what we do. I show my wife the other day because my daughter always try to look over my shoulder if I get on my phone. I'm like, don't.
Yeah.
She's like, why not? I was like, scroll through my feed. Scroll. Breastfeeding video. Well, it's a model with silicone boobs and a fake baby on one boob. That just randomly pops up. There is nothing. You could check all my search. I've never Googled that. I don't even pause on it, but it'll pop up in your reels that go across it. And it's inappropriate stuff. There'll be like 2 of them, and then the next one will be Grant Cardone talking about 10X. It's like, well, that's what I click on.
Yeah.
But that stuff pops up to where I'm like, I don't even want them looking over my shoulder if I hop on to check my Facebook real quick because I don't know what's going to pop up. It's wild. And then everyone around you is negative, so you have to create that echo chamber of that positivity.
Yeah, and that's one of the things for me that's been so impactful with the Guild, especially in the beginning when I was going through the program, was being able to surround myself with other dudes that were trying to live an on-mission lifestyle.
Yes.
And trying to be successful in their life, right? Because if you are surrounding yourself with people, and nothing against going out and partying occasionally, but if you're going and you're hanging out with people that are out partying every single night, showing up late to work, not doing the things that you're going to do, right?
What are you going to do?
Yeah, you're going to start to associate with that. You're going to start doing the same things that they are. Or if you're not, it's going to most likely create some guilt, right? Yep. And if you're not eliminating those individuals from your life or shifting to other people that are doing the work that you're wanting to do, that guilt is going to come in and say, well, I probably should go hang out with my friends, or I should do this.
I fell victim to that a lot. When I opened my business, my Taekwondo school, I was 28. Everybody was partying. Everybody was single. Most of my friends were still, only had like a couple friends that actually had real jobs. Most of them were still at their high school type job. And I remember so many nights being like, all right, I'll go out. There's still Facebook posts that pop up, and I love them, they're friends, but fuddy-duddy Matt's not coming out again. Well, I was on a different mission. I just didn't see it. I thought there was something wrong with me. I credit Grant Cardone's Be Obsessed or Be Average. I was driving down the road, and he's like, everybody's always told me, Grant, you're no fun. Grant, you need to go out. Grant, you're depressed. Grant, you should take medicine, all this stuff. He's like, I just like to work. And I was like, I'm like yelling at the radio in my truck. I was on Bryan Road in O'Fallon. I almost wrecked because I was like yelling at my radio. I'm like, yes, that's me, because I didn't have that core. I had great friends, but they were on a different mission than I was. So I had a ton of guilt. I'd go out with them even when I shouldn't, even when I didn't have the money, because I had poured my money into investing in my Taekwondo school. It wasn't until later on that I found that. And even when I had some struggles and went to a counselor, she was like, I need you to make me a list of 5 guys you need to hang out with that are going to call you on bullshit. And keep your head straight, because you're not surrounding yourself. The only thing you have that's like that is your audiobooks. That's you don't have the core group, and it's so important. And that you guys are doing that is what's huge, because it needs to be talked about more. People need to hear it more, because like you said, I've had employees that show up, they come to work, they're doing great, and then we find out they're hanging out with some old friends again, and next thing you know, they're laying out of work, they're back on drugs, back drinking too much. It was exciting the other day. This page popped up, and it was called Sobriety Life.
Okay.
Sobriety Farm, something like that. I'll show it to you. I sent Stu. But it was Make Sobriety Cool or something like that. It was the trendy, weird clothing and hats for people who want to be sober. Really, really neat. And I was excited because I sent it to a couple people I knew that I knew would really dig it. And they're like, oh, it's badass. I've never seen that. I'm like, I don't know. It just popped up my feed. I thought it was really cool. But it was cool to have that group to where for the longest time, I didn't even drink much as a youth, but everybody else did. And I was like, so finally I'm like, I'll have a beer. I'll have this. Because I just got fed up with constantly having to explain why I just didn't want to drink. I enjoyed myself. I was kind of dumb anyways. Like, I didn't need to add alcohol in the mix. I do some stupid shit without it. So it's great that you guys do it. What is your mission with the Guild? Like, what is it that's really just brought you there?
So I think initially it was being honest, was to prove that it wasn't going to work. Right? It's really, when I first went into the program, I was like, this is a joke, right? This isn't actually going to work. How is this going to help me? I've been to a therapist. I've been through this. I've been through whatever. And it absolutely changed my life to the point that, and I think Stu had talked about it last November, I quit my job and he went part-time with the department. And for me, it's really about being able to provide those services that when I was going through the things that I was going through, I wish I would have had or would have known about, to then be able to help people work through. Because the thing is individuals don't want to feel alone.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want to feel like we're on an island and you're not, right? There's so many other people that are out there that are experiencing similar things to you that can then help you through that journey, right? And as well, my spiritual journey has really been attributed to the Guild, right? So I went into the Guild and had I would probably classify myself as agnostic.
Yeah.
Right? And through the Guild, through the different experiences that I've had, going to Guatemala, going to these different things, have really accepted God into my life, and things have completely changed. So by being able to recognize that in myself and go through that journey is being able to talk about it,
Yeah.
right? And being able to talk to people about that.
What was that like for you? I recently talked about my experience on a podcast. It was the first time I kind of really laid it all out and said stuff without hesitation, because I've had a couple podcasts, Stu and I, one of them that talked about religion a lot, and it was something I was going through, and I think those people were put on the podcast for the purpose of opening my eyes to it, because it's been a huge change. What was that whole process like, if you don't mind talking about it for you? Like, because I know how my story went.
Yeah, so I grew up, I went to a Roman Catholic school, elementary school, and then we switched over and I started going to a Lutheran church. Then we turned into that, like, Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving family, right?
The guilt holidays, they call it, or whatever.
Yeah, we would go a couple times. And for me, what I recognized is, even going through the military and then my experiences within law enforcement, is I would call on God when I needed it. Right, if you've ever heard that Jelly Roll song, that was me.
God.
Yeah, that was me. And for me, the person that was easy to blame for all of the bad stuff that was going on, so I didn't have to take personal responsibility, was God. Right, so I was pissed at God all the time. I was angry, and really, even coming into the Guild, I pushed it off. Right, I felt this inner calling, but wasn't listening. Right, and it was like, as you guys talked about, that answering the phone, I just wasn't picking up, and it kept ringing and kept ringing and kept ringing. And the Guild, we went on a mission trip with North Road Church to Guatemala, and that's really where things changed for me. So we went over, and the last day that we were there, Stu and I had a conversation, because I was getting really upset. I'm like, look, I feel like an imposter, right? I don't really believe I'm here in Guatemala helping,
That's why I hated going to church. I always felt like an imposter. I'm like, I don't believe the shit these people believe.
Yeah, I was like, this isn't for me. This isn't my thing. And we were in Guatemala on a church mission trip, right?
Yeah.
Talking to kids about God, talking about, hey, this is how you can
look at
be
me, the
saved.
poser.
Look how awesome this is. And that night, the day before we left, I sat everybody down and I was like, hey, this is on my heart, and I just need to tell you. I was like, I don't know that I believe, right? I don't know that this is. And from that point on, when I finally was just completely open and honest with my fears, my angers, there's a guy from our church, I don't know if I should name drop him, but awesome dude at the church. There's two of them that have been super influential to me, gave me this book that really walked through all of the reasons why people normally say, hey, this isn't something that can be real. And I went through that book and then started doing a Bible study with one of the church leaders called Experiencing God. And as we were walking through that book, I just kept getting these calls, like, all my life, that innate feelings. We had one that it was funny so I used to live in North Dakota, and there was when I was moving out, there was a carpet cleaner that came in, and I was supposed to pay cash. I didn't have cash and just forgot to pay him, right? And it's been 7 years that I didn't pay him, and I was reading through some of the book and scriptures, and it was talking about, you need to pay your bills, right? And just that calling on my life, and God saying, yeah, you need to stop right now and call this dude. And I called the guy from North Dakota, and we talked for like 45 minutes about scripture, about different things, and I paid the bill, and that sense of relief was just huge for me.
That stuff builds up on you. Yeah, for sure.
So that was really the process for me, and then recognizing that I'm not going to have all of the answers, and it's okay to ask, right? So that was one of the things that for me was a struggle, was that feeling of, I can't ask these questions, because if I ask, I'm going to be told nope and get your smack on the wrist, stupid, or I'm going to look stupid. And for me, that was what really propelled that. And as soon as I did, my life started to change, right? Just small things that I began to notice, and people that were being put in my life, different experiences, different things like that, to be able to put into my life that's just completely changed the outlook, the way that, I live my life.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we do so well in the Guild is create that space. So while we're a Christian organization, you don't have to be Christian to be within the Guild. And creating that space for people to come in and say, hey, this is something that I don't believe, or this is something that I'm questioning, or I'm angry at God, giving that space to talk about it so that people can explore for themselves, right? And if somebody comes out on the other end and is like, hey, I'm going to go to church, that's awesome. And if somebody's just like, hey, I needed to have that conversation, that's awesome, right? We're not trying to force anybody in any one way or another. So
Yeah.
No,
and that's what I think is so important about what you're doing. And see, mine was kind of similar. I could hear it. I knew it was there. I'd see people that had been on their journey already and were very open about it. I'd be like, you fake ass. I'd always, or there was a point where I was like, man, I'm just jealous. I wish I could feel like that, this stress. And I'd always been like, oh, my gut instinct. And I realized about 2 weeks ago, I was thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? That's God. That's not my gut. Because people be like, how'd you know that? I don't know. My gut instinct. And it was funny because we actually, at Anchored Hope, Michael covered that this week in the sermon. I was like, damn, I thought that the other day too. That's wild. It was amazing for me, and being able to have those conversations with people, it helps you really work through it, because you can get in your own head, and God's not back in our lives. It's amazing at how much it's been taken out. You're not allowed to say anything. You're not allowed to do so much anymore that people can't have these conversations. Or there are the people that abuse it and use it. My mom's had a bunch of different contractors come to her house to work on stuff, and she'd be like, oh, it's such a good guy. I met him at church. I'd be like, gosh, here we go. You're about to get taken advantage of. And sure enough, several times it happened where I was weird about it. So then I even get weird, like when I'm talking to people. When I was talking to the school district the other day about my new program, I was like, don't hate me for saying this, but this is where God wants me to be. This is what, and they were like, no, that's really cool. And I was like, if someone would have told me that a year ago, I'd been like, well, God wants me to be in the room here. I'd been like, okay, well,
and it's
Matt doesn't want you to be here, so leave. Like it would have been a different conversation. But once you experience that and move through it and accept it, it's huge.
And it's the thing that I like to think about, and I heard it on a Joe Rogan podcast. So this is not me. Is this idea of, are you praying with a PRAY, or are you praying on someone? And I think so often within the church, right, people feel like they're being preyed upon, not prayed for. And by creating a space where we can say, hey, we're going to pray for you, we're not going to pray on you, right? We're not trying to sell you anything. We're not trying to do anything like that. We're just here to pray on you is important, because if you feel like you're being preyed upon, why would you come back? Why would you be a part of something? And a lot of people feel that within the different churches that, I went to 6 or 7 churches that I didn't find the place. And it's the same thing like with therapy, same thing with church, same thing with really anything, right? Is if it's not a good fit, that's okay. There's other ones out there, and recognizing that it doesn't mean that you're a loser or you're a bad person or you don't belong there. It's recognizing that this just isn't the right fit for me. And I think so often we think of, same thing with like a doctor. You go to a doctor and it's a terrible experience, you're probably not going to go to that doctor. Right? However, if you go to a church and it's a terrible experience, you go, nope, all churches suck. I hate this. It's horrible. I'm not going anymore.
Yeah, you don't just not go back to the doctor ever, but you do not go back to church. Yeah, no. So, and I know my mom, when I was in that season of life, as Michael calls it, like would, oh, it's Easter, let's go to church. I'm like, oh my God. Like I would dang near psychologically put myself into being sick. Physically. Casey would be like, oh, look, I'd start coughing or something. She's like, well, here we go. Matt's got to go somewhere he doesn't want to. Let's hear it. But once I came to acceptance with it, it's been huge. And I think that's what's so important about groups like the Guild, is that you guys are giving a place for this. So I know Stu's done before, but why don't you walk us through a little bit of what you can say about stations? Like what the theory behind stations is, maybe for those people that are listening that have heard us say it a couple times. But no. And I was super bummed because the last one was the day of a tournament, and I'm glad I ended up going to the tournament, because we had a bunch of issues, not with the tournament, just with students. We have a comp team. You have to commit to the competition team. I get people that want to do tournaments that don't want to commit to the team. Well, I allow them to come to like 1 or 2 practices. I just had some people that just were not picking up on what they need to do for a tournament. We're really upset. So I'm glad I went to that and skipped stations, but it is still on one of my lists, because I think there's a reason Stu invited me and has been trying to get me on there forever.
Hey, there's one coming up in July.
I'm booked. No, I'm
No.
kidding. I'm
So,
kidding. No.
and one of the funny things, and I'll jump into it, is when I went through stations, I don't know if you remember us reaching out.
Yeah,
So
I remember that whole debacle.
I don't know if Stu told you. We thought you were a plant.
He told me that.
That was like, we were so
before we shot the
convinced
podcast. He's like, I don't think I've ever got to tell you this.
Yeah, it was wild. We were like, this dude's just trying to get us to be pissed off at each other.
Oh,
So
man. No,
it
Stu
worked
said
really
it
well.
worked out really good.
It was awesome.
Because I literally was just overwhelmed with it. And then all the messages and all that stuff, like I took the app off my phone and just stopped. And then, he said, because one of you guys like reached out to Casey.
Yeah, that was me.
Was it? Okay, I thought it was you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there was all this stuff going on, and Stu's like, yeah, they thought I had you in as a plant. This whole thing was a setup.
Yep.
All this stuff. I'm like, no, I just felt really bad about not being able to do it because of where I was at with the businesses, and that just kind of blocked it all out. And I didn't realize he had given. Well, I think at some point he told me, when I told him I just couldn't do it, that he had kind of put you guys on a thing to try to get me there. And he didn't realize like how far that you guys had all
went deep.
Yeah,
We
that's
went
what he
deep.
told me.
I think if we would have known your address, we may have showed up there too, but we didn't at the time. So with stations, right? So right now it's a 4.5 day program. So we have the different days. So the initial day 1 and day 2 are that controlled adversity. So the first 2 days, day 1 looks like, and all of this is on the Facebook page. So the thing that we had just posted has the entire schedule of what stations is. So day 1 and day 2 is that controlled adversity. We're going to walk you through some different exercises to identify where you're at, kind of what your perspective is, how the world has impacted the way that you view your life. We also do assessments in the very beginning. So we have a full assessment, actually 3 different ones that we do to see where you're at. And then at the end of stations, we do the same assessments. And then at 6 months, we do those assessments again to be able to have that metric to show, hey, this is where you were at, this is where you are now, and this is where you're at in 6 months after that 6-month process. So we do that to ensure, one, people can see where they're at. Because I think a lot of times, same thing people tell me when you work out, like you don't notice
you
it
need
at first.
you need the metrics to see.
So we do the
Yeah.
metrics. Day 3 is going to be the recovery, right? So self-care, really focusing on the internal self, being able to hang out, have that fellowship. And then we go into the classroom portions is day 4 and then 4.5. We are looking to go to day 5. So we keep stations relatively secretive because our whole point is for you to trust the process, right? Is to jump in. Now we do tell family members where they're at. We had a question earlier today about, well, where is it at? So what we tell people is we keep it within 1 to 3 hours of where the core group of individuals are. That way, if there is an emergency, right, because you're not going to have your phone, we contact your people. If you don't,
the anxiety of that,
right?
that's like
so. And what we see is the first day there's a lot of anxiety, and then day 4.5, 5, when we give the phones back, people are like, I don't know that I really want this. That was really relaxing, right? And it's just a byproduct of not having to deal with that. So what we're doing is providing and going through the different aspects of the guild, right? Shifting that perspective, how to live an on-mission lifestyle. And through that, individuals find that purpose. So we help individuals create a mission statement, their own oath, identify their values to be able to say, hey, this is what I want. This is how I get it, right? And we have some different activities, and being super vague, I recognize that.
Yeah, no, you're good. I know that's kind of
So
part of it. That's
different
what
different activities that really help. I know for me, it was something that just blew my mind, right? Coming out of stations, it was like the light had turned on for me. I had the information. I thought I had the information, and just some of the things that were said to me at stations were that light bulb moment.
Yeah, that's why I want to do it. I've heard so many testimonials about it that I'm like, that's definitely something I want to do.
Yeah. So, in a nutshell, we're bringing people together to be able to identify their mission, find that purpose, live an on-mission lifestyle, be better husbands, wives, spouses, kind of across the gamut now that we have that female program. And taking people through. So everything that happens at station is for a reason, right? From the intake process to all of the different activities that we do. And one of the, and I think Stu shared this, and I may get a phone call after this airs from Stu being like, why'd you say that? But we'll see. So one of the activities that we do is called You Are Not Unique, right? Yanu. And I think he talked about it before.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yep.
One of the most impactful things, and he shares the story, and I'll share it again, is we had a room full of 13 first responders, veterans, and this was a couple years ago, so don't call anybody on me. So a couple years ago, and one of the guys, who happened to be me, he doesn't share that because it's my story, but I said, hey, I still experience suicidal ideation. This is something that I struggle with. And in that room, there was 13 dudes that were 12 dudes that raised their hand, and that was that light bulb moment for me to recognize I'm not alone in this. I may feel like I am, but I'm not. And for me, that's where things started to change. So all of the lessons that we teach gear people to be able to have those experiences and take away from the actual experiences they have within stations. Because there's so many different activities, so many different things that we do, but that camaraderie, that connection to other people, where I recognized I finally wasn't alone and I wasn't on that island and I could seek help, I could talk to people and do that, is where that change was. And we see that so often for guys at the end, is that recognition of, hey, I'm not alone, right? I am valued, I do matter, and I can continue to live my life the way that I want and go downhill, or I can implement these lessons. And we tell guys too, we're not trying to keep everybody in the guild, right? We'd love for you to stay. Yeah. If you have another organization or you have something that you're doing that you're like, this is passionate for me, this is what is important to me. We had a guy go and go work with a dog agency that absolutely loved that, and it was a better fit for him. So being able to have that connection, because that's where we see the drop off, is at 6 months, if people aren't involved in specific programs and they come back and they go, see, it didn't work. We go, our first question, are you still involved with the guild or church or whatever? And if the answer is no, generally we see those numbers have dropped. But for the individuals that are still engaged, whether it's with us or somebody else, those numbers are on par with what it was post stations. And that's really the thing for me, is the idea of that connection, having that space for dudes. The story that Stu told about when his brother-in-law broke his arm, right? And Adam ran to the hospital, and having that group of guys that I know, hey, if I have an issue, I can call them and somebody's going to be at my door in 20 to 30 minutes. As well as when we're doing well. So we do this thing on Wednesday mornings called Winner Circle, where guys jump on and they share a win for the week. They share what they're happy about, what they are excited about for the week, just to be able to show them, hey, there's other dudes that are winning, and we can share in those wins. Because so often I find that other programs, and not beating any other programs down, but so often we focus on the negatives of, my life is horrible, this is going on, this is horrible, boo-hoo, poor me, right? However, there's not that aspect of sharing when you're doing well, and you have to be able to do that.
Well, in society, we almost kind of don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
We almost don't condone it. And I teach the parents at the school, like my whole garage, we painted it. The kids helped me build shelves. You got all their medals, all their trophies, all their stuff, everything they win, every certificate they get, we post. We hang it all up in the garage, and no matter what they do, if they go out to get the bikes, whatever, they got it there, whatever we're doing. And I teach them to celebrate that. Be proud of your win. Don't hide the fact you did well. You worked hard for that. You did well to get it. But I find so many adults, though, because of social media, people are afraid to. But there's people posting fake wins too. You know, people with the rented watch or the fake watch and the rented car. You know, you have to celebrate your wins. And like I talk to those kids, you know, if you celebrate all your wins, your voice just gets stronger. My kids do not say, oh, there's this thing at school, I don't think I can do it. My kids are arguing over who's going to win it. Do they always win it? No. They place normally, because they understand they can win. We're taught to win. Yeah. But in our society, you get more attention for losing. If I put up a post and say, man, killed it today, did this, might go buy a Rolex later. I'm either, if I get any comments, it's going to be hate. There may be a few likes, but a lot of people aren't going to be like, damn, brother, that was awesome. Like, you might get a couple. But if I posted something whiny and boo-hoo, it's going to have 75 comments, 100 shares, everything else, and I watch it, and that's not all society's fault. The media, the social media has pushed that out there, but that's really messed up. Yeah, like I will watch it. It's with all the posting and everything I do with the businesses lately. Like I posted one video. It said he's gonna kill me. And I didn't like doing it, but I did it. And it was a customer that was upset about her paint job, swore her husband was going to kill her. 1,000 views in 15 minutes. Now, it plateaued. It didn't go viral or anything. But there wasn't a whole lot of benefit to the story. But it was about a distraught lady, and there were people going under it, well, you should have done this or that, or I wouldn't have painted her house because I repainted a different color, trying to make things better. Negativity goes further with a lot of this stuff, not the positivity. And it's a very hard echo chamber we get caught in. I have friends that are different political leaning than I am, and I'll listen to stuff, and they'll be like, no, did you know this? I'm like, no, I never even seen that because I'm directed one way.
Yeah.
It's really sad. So having that group and having that people where you could share the win, it's not just a depressing group, a bunch of dudes crying in their beer.
Nope.
Like, that's not what you want.
No. And it's the thing, is being able to have those differing perspectives, because I love every dude that's in the guild. I don't agree with every dude that's in the guild. Right? We have arguments, we have different things, and that's needed, because if you have that echo chamber one way or the other, right, if all you hear is positivity, you're going to be like, I'm the best thing in the world. Nothing can stop me. So you have to have those people in your life that are like, hey, dude, I love you. What you're doing isn't beneficial for yourself. And on the other end, right, if you're living a negative life, having dudes that can be able to pull you back up and say, hey, yeah, that probably wasn't a great idea.
Yep.
And yet we can work through it and help each other out, and staying out of that echo chamber. Same thing with a good example of that is if you've ever been in a critical incident, or anybody watching has ever been in a critical incident, you get that tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the same thing when we're in that echo chamber of our emotions of I'm the best or I'm the worst, is we start to eliminate the things that tell us otherwise, right? If I think that I'm a horrible person, I'm going to find reasons why I'm a horrible person.
And you're going to find reasons to get people to agree with you. You're going to act out in those ways. You're going to do things. Yeah.
And that posture that we hold, and that's one of the things we talk about, right? That posture of, if I'm holding a posture of I'm not approachable, people don't want to talk to me, I'm not important, then people are going to treat me like all of those different things. So for guys, just recognizing, and gals now, we're going to have to get used to saying that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I've been trying to get out of the habit of saying the guild men's. Like, because I noticed that's not on there. You know,
we changed that up.
The guild fellowship, and I've been getting in the habit of it. And then when I heard, when my friend reached out, said she had talked with Stu, I was like, oh, that's awesome. You're perfect for that. He nailed that one too. I've been getting in that habit too, because the other day I think I was trying to tag, it was when his podcast stuff come out, I was trying to tag him, and I kept typing men's, and I was like, nothing can pop up, because I get real frustrated. Some people's businesses, like their business name is very awkward on their page. Or sometimes it just won't let me tag people's stuff. Even if I like the page, follow the page, heck, I might have my photo on their page, but it won't let me tag them. So I get pissy sometimes, because it's like, all right, I only had 5 minutes to do this. No, I did. I noticed that was out of it. And I think that's great, because it's awesome that it's for guys, and so many guys need to hear this, and so many guys need to have this conversation. But hey, there's ladies too. And it's one of the big things that I've talked about in my own relationship. I'm like, my wife, you need hang out with your friends and have good conversations. Like, if you're a married guy, you probably don't need to go hang around a bunch of single dudes. Probably gonna get you in trouble. You need to hang around other happily married people so that everybody's making good decisions. And it is weird in this day and age, but it's so important. And it's something that I've always struggled with. Like, everything I do with my businesses, I'm the boss. People will, and I'm approachable. I take criticism well, but a lot of people are just very quick to tell you what you want to hear.
Shouldn't do.
Well, but what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've been researching different coaches, higher level coaches, or mentors, for finding someone that's going to work well with me. I know a couple people, a friend of mine would work with, that has made millions and millions of dollars, had skills, has a great family, he's been a martial artist. Like, I'm looking into some stuff to have that person that success wise with their businesses is up here, where I can be like, hey man, I think I'm going to do this. They'd be like, no. Oh, because if one of my employees was like, man, that's a stupid job. I'd be like, yeah, okay, well, you work for me. Go back to work. Like, my brain would do that. I know that. Nothing against them. They're great people. Love them to death. But I would not listen to business advice from them. Whereas I've been searching for that voice to be like, yeah, you're right. Close this, move that, don't do this. You're right. Those are good thoughts. Whereas, like, other people be like, yeah, I think you're onto something. It's like,
yeah, and this might be a hot take, but you have to, I'm going to say it anyway.
No, go for it.
Is the idea that you have to connect with people that are on a higher level than we are, right? Because if we're
Yeah.
if we're seeking advice from people, and when I say on a higher level, I'm not talking about better than, worse than, right? From the aspect of individuals. But if you want to be a 7-figure business person, right, you have to talk to people who are $100 million.
Yes,
all
yeah,
of these
talk to
people,
8,
you have
9 figure. Yeah, I don't want
Yeah.
somebody that's barely breaking even to be like, hey, bro, let me, because those guys give you free advice all the
Yep.
time. I tell my people, there's a chapter in my book called Bad Advice, and it's about all the crappy advice you get and how you gotta, if someone's gonna help you with something, are they where you want to be? Are they there on the life journey, or where are they at? And that's my thing with business. I've got a lot of people I work with that have never seen 7 figures, so when they want to give me tips on stuff, whether they're right or not,
Yeah.
I'm not going to listen to them.
Yeah.
But if someone I know has done 100 million and they're like, I wouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Oh,
drop
okay.
it. Like
Yeah.
when I did Arte coaching, Andy Frischella would say, stop doing this. I'd
Okay.
stop.
Yeah.
I was done because I was like, no, that dude is killing it. And I respect the hell out of him. He said, stop doing it. We're not doing that no more.
Yeah.
But now if somebody that did multi-level, Tupperware sales told me that, I'd be like, that's so cute.
Yeah.
Go sell your little Tupperware things.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't listen. That's how my brain works. So having that group of guys around you and having those people to call you out and to hold you accountable. What was it someone said the other day? Because I just talked about this to someone else, but I had noticed people coming to me with conversations. Asking me things, and I had found myself being like, oh yeah, I understand. You're fat because, oatmeal bloats you. Not that you had 17 cheeseburgers this weekend. Like, I found myself positioned, I'd be like, yeah, I understand. Yeah, I get that. It's hard. And my voice at the back of my head, like we talked earlier, higher power, Jesus or whatnot, however you want to say it, going, you don't care about that person. If you cared about him, you'd be like, get out of here. I just watched what you ate. That's why you're fat. Or, yeah, like I get dads, I couldn't do this martial art. I got the this injury or that injury. And me calling someone out, being like, you can do it. Shut up. Just get out here. Get some gloves on. Come on. I won't hurt you. Mess with them. And Josh, what my guys have to do. But starting to have those hard conversations because they were being put in front of me to do it.
Yeah.
And that is actually showing you care for someone. I remember...
Absolutely.
Was in a relationship spot at one point, and my boss sat me down. He's like, man, listen, you got A and B here. You're talking, are you stupid? And I was like, well, I'm in love with this one. I got to go this way. Neither relationship worked out. Looking back, I was like, Todd actually cared about me, because if I was in his shoes, I'd have had that same conversation with me. I've been like, well, listen, you're making some really dumbass choices over here. Meanwhile, you're screwing this up. Like, that is how you really do show someone you care.
Yeah.
You don't have to be ignorant. It's working on that delivery too of doing that, but having that core group around you. I'm a loner. I don't hang out with everyone. And this podcast kind of changed that, because I started having conversations and going, ooh, I needed that.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, this episode wasn't for them. This was for me. This is what needs to be having more of.
Yeah. And that's what I experienced with the Guild, and just from my personal experience, that's one of the big things that I get from the Guild is every single time we do a stations or we do coaching or we do a peer support group or whatever that looks like, I'm always taking just as much, if not more, from the individuals that are doing that. And that for me is healing. And we find a lot of healing from helping others, because as Stu said, the best way to get joy is to give it away.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to do that and recognize that it's okay to pour into other people. It's also okay to pour into yourself.
Yes.
And that's the thing that a lot of people don't do. We go, oh, well, I got a massage 6 months ago, so I'm doing self-care and I'm doing great. And we have to build a life that we're not wanting to escape from.
Yes.
And that is the biggest takeaway that I've had, is being able to say, hey, I don't need to escape from this life because I enjoy what I do. Are there hard times? Absolutely. And those hard times make me a better person.
Yeah, but everything's going to be hard.
Yeah.
No, and you're right. And I get people all the time, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. I don't have time. My life started getting super stressful here recently, and I told Casey, I said, there is nothing going to pull me away from the gym in the morning. I'm going to do my ice baths. She called me
Which is wild.
She's like, did you just buy a $700? I'm like, yes. So ice baths are, like, for a good one's about $10K.
Yeah.
For an inflated one's about $5,000. You get some lower end ones for like $2,500, which is ridiculous. Well, I found you could just buy the cooler for $600 shipped.
Okay.
So I got it today. I got it all set up in the basement. I get to do it, but I told her, I said, I got to do them in the morning and night because it is a huge thing for me. I was like, I have to commit to this stuff, and I had to clean my diet up because I said I'm losing my mind and snacking, skipping the gym, skipping my ice baths, skipping family time because I keep telling myself if I work more, I'll feel better because I'll catch up.
Yep.
It ain't going to happen.
No.
So this weekend, I threw my phone on the end table. I left it alone most of the weekend, and I just had much more fun. I'm literally experimenting with, like, making sure to delegate stuff to just get away from being able to get away from it.
Yeah.
Because that outside world brings that, but we let the outside world steal those things from us. And I learned from people older than me or more experienced than me that were really happy. Things are like, no, I have to do these things every day. For me, if I don't do those things, I'm not on point at night with the dojo to notice when that one student is struggling with something. I may say something because of my position to change their life.
Yep.
If I didn't go to the gym and do my ice baths and get my morning, Deion Sanders, his book is amazing. Have you read that one?
I haven't read it, but I saw it.
Man, he talks about his getting the temperature right in the morning. He goes, I don't just mean the thermostat, I mean my thermostat. He talks about his morning routine. That is one of the biggest things. If something happens and I got to run to a job site early in the morning, man, it screws up my morning routine. Yeah. And doubling down on that, but having people in your life to tell you that's okay.
Yeah.
And that you need to do that or set that example to where you see it. You're like, oh, cool. Well, you're going to the gym like that. I've got several people I know now. I see at the gym in the morning. They're there. If they're not there, send them a text. Hey, where you at? I got one that's getting, Tuesday. If his son's in class, he get called out tonight because he has not been at the gym lately. But having that support is so necessary. So if people listening want to get a hold of Guild, they want to donate, they want to sponsor, they want to bring you guys out, they want to, recommend you to a family member, what are the best ways for them to find you?
So we've got our Facebook page, so Guild Men's Fellowship. I believe it's still that tag on Facebook. Okay. You can also visit www.guildfellowship.com. That goes directly to us, or just info@guildfellowship. Okay. That'll go directly to our email. We like to respond within 24 hours. Generally, you're going to get a phone call or an email within a couple hours. Now, with the caveat, if you email us at like 3 o'clock in the morning, you're probably not going to get a call till a little bit later. Or just reaching out to Stu and I. Those are the best ways to do it on Facebook. If you're friends with me on Facebook, just reaching out. And we're always happy to come talk to people. We're always happy to talk to businesses, because that's one of the big things that we're looking for right now is connections to different businesses. So we have 9 tailored courses right now that we teach that go from the gamut of peer support all the way to crisis response, how to live after a crisis. And what we're doing is teaching those lessons to businesses so that the businesses are able to then fund the programs so that an individual never has to come out of pocket to do that. So if you have businesses,
I've got to schedule out the teens and everybody at school. We're really excited about it, and I wanted to chat with you guys about. Actually, I had an idea to do it a little bit bigger, and get a little more exposure.
Absolutely.
That may be really cool since we have the gym and we have the space to do it. Not just my teens at the school, but maybe open it up to a bigger group and just say, hey, we're only going to do. I had some ideas for that I've just, with everything going on and like every time we're
busy,
always going so much. So awesome. Well, hey guys. Check out everything that Guild's doing, everything that Tyler and Justin are doing. It's an amazing group, amazing organization. The leadership stuff, I've talked in depth with them on this and what they're teaching. If you want to bring them in to work with your business and your staff, we don't have anything like this out here. I've searched out stuff like this. At one point, I was like, I wonder if I have enough money to hire Echelon Front. Jocko had talked about some of the stuff they do on one of the podcasts. I was like, oh my gosh, like that'd be so cool. What they're doing is amazing, and I can't wait till we do the next episode and I can talk about all the cool things we learned when you guys were out. So support, follow them. This is amazing that we have this in Lincoln County, and if you guys don't know about it or if you got anything, reach out to them. If you forget how to get a hold of them, get a hold of me, message the podcast page. I will get you in contact with them.
Awesome.
So thank you for coming on,
absolutely. I appreciate it.
It's
really
good time
here.
Awesome.
It is.